statistical, so unpredictable, here on SNL Stats.
Yes, that is right. SNL Stats is back. We have SNL back for another 3 episodes, and you know what that means. Some more SNL Stats roundtables. My name is John Schneider here from SNL Stats, and I am so excited to discuss everything from this past weekend, our Maya Rudolph episode, with some very special guests. Let's kick it off right away with Rich Tackenberg, one of my favorite people to talk to about SNL, a great SNL podcaster. Rich, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I am in LA. I am vaccine adjacent where we can get it in a couple of weeks. It feels like that time in the fall when there is no SNL, but SNL will post the Twitter card showing who the guests are going to be in a couple of weeks. Like that to me is like the vaccine card of SNL. I'm so close. So I'm giddy with anticipation.
Wait, so you have to tell me, did Boomers Got the Vax speak to you?
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
Yes.
Joining us again, it's so great to hear from Andrew Haynes. We call him Haynes around here because of all the Andrews that join us on a weekly basis. Haynes, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's great to be back on my favorite SNL podcast, the Boomer Vax. It's way too early to get into that because I did have real emotions. And vaccines are going pretty well here in North Carolina. I'm 1 shot in, waiting on that second one. I got my card. I will be loading up on the Krispy Kreme donuts.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to open up with a game show like Vaxxed, Waxed. We were going to get into everything. So, and also introducing, she joined us last week a little bit on our trivia show. So, but it's my pleasure to introduce her to our regular audience for people who just check out our roundtables. Introducing Nicole Rovine. Nicole has joined our team and takes care of all of the marketing for SNL Stats and has joined us for some of our roundtables. And you'll be hearing her voice a lot. So, Nicole, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I am in New York City, so we're doing pretty well with the vaccine rollout. I actually worked at a testing center a few months ago, so I'm fully vaccinated,
nice.
Which is great.
Nice.
I was first in my family, which is kind of a flex over here. But I'm good. I'm so excited to be here to podcast with you all and get into it. There's a lot to say.
Yeah, so Gen Z got the vax. It's great. It's great to see.
I'm a cusper. I think I'm technically a millennial. I'm right there.
All right.
Actually,
well,
I go back and forth.
This is the thing, Nicole. I want to introduce you properly to the audience. So, can you give us your origin story about SNL? How did you get into the show? Why do you want to talk about it? Tell everybody everything.
Of course. So, yeah, I've lived in New York City my whole life. So, Saturday nights when I was walking around with my friends in middle and high school, if we were in Midtown, there was always this buzz, and I loved the show, and I loved walking around knowing that the cast inside was whatever they were doing, getting ready to start the show, the adrenaline, you could just feel it when you walked around 30 Rock. So I've loved it forever. I feel a special connection to it, having lived here all my life. I would say the transition for me between being a big fan and wanting to be a more active part of the SNL community was about a year ago when the pandemic really went into full gear. I really relied emotionally. I was a little codependent even on the SNL at homes. They weren't great as we know, they did their best, but the comfort and the reliability were just, I was so impressed and blown away at that, the humility and the everything that they did and their willingness to just get right down with us into the dumps and the darkness and find light in that. So I started recapping actually the SNL at homes for my college newspaper, and that was a great way to feel like I was giving back to the SNL community and really more than anything just showing more people my age than college age how important the show is and how amazing it still is. So that was really meaningful. And then the past year, I've just continued to be a big fan, as I always have been. And I am so grateful to have found another way to be a part of the community.
That's great. Well, we're really happy to have you on board with us, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts tonight. So this is the way that we like to start our roundtables. We like to set the table, talk about where we are in the SNL season and what's happening from a macro level. So Rich, let me start with you. We got this announcement for the next 3 episodes. These are, 3 of the final 6 that we're going to get as we head towards the end of the season. What are you looking to see from Saturday Night Live through the end of the season?
Joy, fun, excitement, party. I would love good writing, but I think at this point, what I'm looking for is the same release that we're starting to feel around here. I think, what I want is the same sort of exuberance of this might actually be somewhat close to over soon. I think SNL, when it's really good, when it really is in line with the culture, the sketches don't have to be about the subject matter, but the vibe and the tone somehow mirror how we're all feeling, and I think that's where we're headed. This, I think, was a good start to that, and I'd love to see just a real sort of just joy in the next few episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. I co-sign that. Haynes, how do you feel about the next 6 episodes?
I first of all, I love that take, Rich. The vibe is yeah, it doesn't have to be something specific in the sketches. When SNL really has their finger on the pulse, and obviously they're trying to do that all the time. It doesn't have to be a direct reference. I love that idea, and I think we're feeling that already. Something about the whole, ever since we entered 2021, and I know 2021 hasn't been 100% what we were hoping for. We're still a little bit, in the shadow of 2020, but I really feel like since January, every episode is really positive and we're moving in the right direction. I've really enjoyed the last several episodes. I'm really looking forward to Daniel Kaluya. And obviously, there's a lot to talk about with this Maya episode. So looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited, Nicole, to hear what you think. We haven't heard your thoughts on the first 14 episodes, but kind of, set the table about where you are at in the season and what you would like to see for the final 6.
Yeah, I love everything that both of you said. As I said with the At Home, I loved when they just weren't taking themselves too seriously. It was clear that that they were just right there with us, feeling our pain, feeling our hopelessness, but then also their optimism brought us up. So I love SNL when they're meeting us wherever we are. And in this case right now, it feels like the cast is doing exactly that. They're at this point where it seems like they're having fun and they're not taking anything too seriously, which is what I need. I need the type of humor that is lighthearted and is telling us that it's okay to laugh, and it's also okay if the humor isn't perfect. I don't know that we even want the perfect sketch writing ever right now. Maybe we just want something that feels relatable and it doesn't feel like it's trying too hard or like it's too perfect. We just want something that brings us to the show and makes us feel connected to the cast and connected to their message. And yeah, so I like where they're going. I think that they seem relaxed, they seem happy, and we all need a little bit of that right now.
For sure. And, one of the main themes that came up in this discussion is, are we kind of, heading towards the end of this thing? And I know that it's something that's, a little bit scary to talk about because it's felt that way throughout several waves of this thing over the last year about, are we nearing the end? So everyone's just kind of being careful with when we're going to declare that. But as far as, NBC and Saturday Night Live is concerned, I do know that there was an announcement made where Jimmy Fallon last week for the first time moved back into his regular studio. He had an audience at a greater capacity. So the expectation was that SNL's rules for, COVID related things would be laxed a little bit coming into this episode. So from what I heard is that they did have a little bit of a larger audience. And what we also saw in this episode was more cameos than we've seen throughout the season, people actually in the building. So that was interesting because now it sets the table for what we're going to see in the last 5, where it's okay. Now we're getting back to the regular feel of we can have friends and family of the show come on in and impact the quality of what we're going to see for the rest of the season. So that's what's exciting for me. And that's what I'm looking forward to in our last 5 episodes. Let's talk Maya Rudolph, though, because I know that's why everybody came here excited to hear about it. Before we get into the actual episode, Rich, can you tell me about, your history with Maya Rudolph, watching her on the show and what your opinion was when she was a cast member?
You know, when she first started, my memory was that I was sort of like not really sure where she was going to fit in. You know, she was with some big personalities. I didn't remember her coming out of the gate. Again, this is memory as a big personality and sort of planting a flag early on. But boy, I was a big Maya fan back in the day. I was a huge Maya fan. You know, she, like Mckinnon today, is and like you know, like a lot of the greats. I mean, she is the performer who can steal a scene with one line, and that's gold. I mean, that's my favorite thing in the world. And I think she still has that. It's different when you're being written as the main character in every sketch, so it sort of changes that. But I just think she's fantastic. And you know, when she comes back to do cameos, she really is so versatile. She can do so much. And I'm a big Maya fan. Oh, I have been for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. Haynes, I know you were one of those people when we got the announcements about the people who were hosting the show. You said, I have to talk about Maya. So tell me what you thought of Maya as a cast member and her history with you.
I worship Goddess Maya every day. She is the earth and the sun to me. When I started watching SNL, 7th grade, I was following some of the most recent years, coming off the 92, 93, 94, 95, 96 kind of stuff. That's what was getting me into it. But right as I was getting into high school is when Maya got on the show. And obviously I fell in love with that cast over those years, you know, with Tina and Amy and Rachel Dratch. Amazing seeing Tina and Rachel in this. Would have loved to have seen more of them. I think, you know, you talk about Maya stealing a scene. I think Rachel Dratch is one of those people who can just steal a scene with one line. I freaking love her. So, and I love Maya and everything she does. I really, really, really wish we could get another season of Forever. Has anyone else seen that? It's an amazing show with Fred Armisen. So good on, it's on Amazon, and just, we need a second season so badly. I love Maya and everything. She can do no wrong. I don't know what more I can say.
Yeah, I would say there was some wrong in this episode, but we'll get into it.
Not Maya.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it. But Nicole, not to spoil what you're going to say, but I do have a feeling you're going to gush about Maya Rudolph a little bit. So give it to us.
I mean, she is the world to me. She might be my favorite cast member of all time, and this is the first time I'm saying it, so it's on the record. Pretty sure Maya Rudolph is my favorite cast member of all time. The scene stealing, but then the ability to be in a sketch, and it's the Mckinnon effect today. If she's there, you know it will be elevated. It doesn't matter what she's doing. There's a comfort. If Maya is there, it was true then, it's true now. If she's there, there's just a comfort and a reliability. She can do anything. I also feel a kinship. I won't go into astrology too much, but there's no celebrity who has a closer birth chart to me than Maya Rudolph. And that's important to me. I love that. So I love her. She's brilliant. She is cool and fun. I would watch anything that she does, and I loved the episode regardless of what we're going to talk about. Just the fact that she was there brought me enough joy to sustain.
Yeah
Can I also just say on the coolness factor, aside from everything she does that makes her so cool, she surrounds herself with the coolest people. She's married to Paul Thomas Anderson, who wrote my favorite film of all. He's obviously written many great films, but There Will Be Blood. I don't ever remember renting a movie like 6 times in a year, except when There Will Be Blood came out. So like, she just, can you imagine how cool a person she must be to just attract this type of talent? She's friends with Tina and Amy so closely, and she's married a guy like Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, I would love to spend 5 minutes with Maya Rudolph at a party after the show. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would just love to see her in real life. Amazing.
Yeah, and look, and not to spoil everybody's party here, but I hate Maya Rudolph. I'm just kidding. I love Maya. I think she's great. I think that when she comes in basically as a Molly Shannon replacement in about 2000, and people don't necessarily know what to make of her. I mean, she's certainly diverse, and that was a change for the cast at the time. But she really kind of, I'd say, a couple of years later, post Anna Gasteyer, she really steps into her own and establishes actresses herself as a major part of this cast. And for me, in 2007, there was this writer's strike, which I'm sure a lot of you listening remember. And that season, Maya left partway through at the beginning of the writer's strike. And that was actually the first time in my live SNL watching that I felt like hurt that a cast member had left the show. I really felt like when we came back in 2008, I think it was probably February or March of 2008, and this Casey Wilson person had replaced Maya, and I was like, nobody can replace Maya. There's just nothing that can do it. And fortunately, we got to see her many times since then. So for me, it was very exciting to have her a part of the show. And going into this episode, I was excited to see what was going to happen with Maya now being our 21st cast member, but also a host this season. So that was very exciting. Let's move on to the episode. Let's talk about, things that we saw in this episode. And one thing in particular I want to start with was, for those who are following SNL Stats on Twitter, we broke the news, in the late afternoon, early evening, that Maya's collaborator, Emily Spivey, was, in the building and was helping write a Kamala sketch. And I was very excited about this. I was hoping for maybe a Bronx Beat, because I knew that Spivey wrote those Bronx Beat sketches. But we got word that was going to be the cold open. And then something crazy happened, which doesn't happen very often. As all of you on the panel will know, the show gets shuffled around between dress and air. But for the first time in a while, the cold open was actually swapped out. So the Kamala sketch that you guys saw, that 7-minute sketch later on in the evening, was intended to be the cold open. And instead, we get the spring break game show sketch. So obviously, for anyone who's following us on socials, I tried to get that news out as quickly as possible. But, these things are crazy and they move, and we don't control that stuff. So just happy to give you guys the news. But let me start with Rich. This cold open swap is the first time, at least, we're seeing this for this season. What did you think of that decision to go ahead with this spring break sketch as opposed to the political stuff that we would usually get?
Mwah. 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 Thank you, Lorne. You're my man. Great call. It was a great call. I didn't know this until I found out through SNL Stats, and it was totally the right call, because I think that, you're trapped in a box with a political sketch, and it was when we get there, it was a very acceptable sketch. There was almost nothing memorable about the comedy. There was some memorable stuff about who was there and stuff, where I thought that not starting with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Ted Cruz and all the traditional stuff was so much nicer. And, as probably if you're listening to this podcast, the cold open, like the monologue, it's one of the very few pieces of business that is written specifically to be where it goes. They write a cold open. They don't pick a sketch and put it in the cold open. And it was so nice to start with a sketch as the cold open that was not written to be the cold open, where it didn't feel like we're recapping the last couple of weeks. We're checking the boxes of the things. It was just fun and silly, and a lot of good performances in it, great energy. So I loved it. I thought it was a really, really smart move on their part.
That's a great take. Haynes, do you agree with Rich?
I do agree that it was great to not have the political bit as the cold open. We're so used to the political spot going there. And it was fun to have the amazing cameo, happen a few sketches in rather than at the very start. As far as the actual sketches, I don't know that one was much better than the other. I wasn't head over heels in love with either one of them. I thought that they came in a little hot on the Miami Beach sketch show or game show sketch. I thought that Maya went a little heavy with the accent. I couldn't understand 100% of everything she was saying. Even Chloe didn't 100% nail her enunciation. I couldn't tell that she said Florida Adderall. I thought she said 40 Adderall, and then when she said meth a minute later, it took me a second to get it. So if they had been a little clearer with the delivery, I think maybe I would have gotten a little bit more out of it. But I did like the switch. I thought the switch was a great thing. And I don't know when we're going to start talking about Martin Short, but as far as people that I worship, he is kind of one of them as well. So only the 11th time that he's come back since he was a cast member, and just fantastic to see that type of cameo. I'm kind of anti-cameo if it doesn't really pertain to SNL, if it's just a random celebrity that for some reason is popping into 30 Rock that episode. But I really love the cast of SNL. So if it's a cameo of someone who's as incredibly talented as Martin Short and has the history that he does with SNL, I welcome that every time.
I do want to talk about the swap in general, and then we'll get into the specifics of these sketches among the other stuff throughout the evening. So, Nicole, you were right there alongside me. We were texting about this last-minute swap. I was in a panic. I had to get this news out there quickly. What did you think about the decision to switch these things and how it changed the flow of the show?
Here's what I think about the sketches that, or the shows that come after a hiatus or after the summer. They're never ever my favorites, and it's because it's messy. They don't know how to set things up and what's important. I'll say I love how, for example, Meghan, this is a bit tangential, but Meghan Markle and Oprah, I really wanted to see that, but it's very classic SNL to not give us something, even if it was so important and relevant to culture, if it was 2-3 weeks ago rather than within the last 7-10 days, if it's been a hiatus. So that is disappointing, but it's also on par with them because they love to be on it and all that. So with this, I just didn't know what I wanted for the cold open if it wasn't Meghan Markle and Oprah. So with the swap, I was pretty ambivalent. I was expecting Kamala and then a Meghan and Oprah later, or a Meghan and Oprah at the beginning and then Kamala. I wasn't expecting the Miami Beach. It did feel a little bit of a lazy decision just because there wasn't anything amazing about it. It felt that just the structure of it was really predictable and simple, and the aesthetic was great. I loved all the outfits, and I liked Maya's accent. That's my take. I liked it. It was fun, but there was nothing memorable enough about it to justify that swap to me. The cold open always needs to distinguish itself as worth watching. As Rich said, the cold open is the cold open for a reason. It gets the most views. I think because it's at primetime 11:30. It's always shared the most. There's maybe 1 or 2 sketches that go viral beyond the cold open, but it's reliably, the cold open will be millions of times over. So it's an important slot, and I thought it was kind of a lazy decision. Maybe they could have spiced it up a little bit before they chose to do that, just since there wasn't enough special about it. But I do like that they kind of kept us guessing and did something unpredictable. So
okay,
I'm ambivalent.
Okay, interesting.
Spoiler for the rest of the podcast: we're gonna have a big fight about the cold open sketch.
Okay, well, this is no, let's do this right now, because this is what I want to do. I want to do something a little bit different. Usually, we're going to take this on later, where we're going to go around and talk about the sketches that we want to talk about. But let's talk about the spring break game show and the sketch that was intended to be the cold open. So this is what I want to do. Show of hands, and I'll say for all the audio listeners what it is. Do you think that the spring break game show was better than the Kamala sketch as it was on the show? Show of hands. Okay, interesting. So we only have Rich that thinks that the cold open, that what the actual cold open turned out to be, the spring break game show, was better. So Rich, state your case for why that is.
Oh, I love this sketch. I thought this was so right. I mean, I love the Maya accent was so thick that it had me on my toes at 11:31 p.m. 8:31 because I'm in LA and I'm old. And right out of the gate, when Chloe Feynman says that she's from the University of High School, I'm in. I thought it was, to me, it's what I love about SNL. It had a point, but it wasn't too heavy-handed about the point. It was much more kind of just having fun with, we all get the idea, early on Maya says oh, we're almost at the end, let's ruin it. But all of the specifics of Ego, being in Zoom school during the thing, and when Chris Redd's well, I know she said that she didn't get the vaccine, but I think she got the vaccine. I was just laughing. I just found it so silly and so joyously fun without being too heavy-handed to the point of, hey guys, there's actually still a pandemic out there. Let's dial it back. So I love this. I love this sketch.
Interesting. Okay, so Haynes, give me the opposite case. Tell me why you think the other one should have been the cold open.
Okay, well, I mean, that's where they go. The political stuff goes in the cold open. It's just kind of standard. I think the real cold open was a good sketch, and it's a classic style of SNL sketch that, the game show is a great opportunity to get several characters on the stand and other characters coming out from behind the curtain. It was funny. I just think that when you bring back a genius like Martin Short, how can you not? I mean, my eyes were stars, during that moment. Like he's amazing, and maybe maybe there weren't as many jokes per minute as there were in the actual cold open. And I admit I'm a fast jokes guy. That's what I want. And it was a little bit weird. But I mean, we got Martin Short and whatever they were, and we got Alex Moffat coming back as Biden finally, which I think a lot of people have been looking forward to. I was looking forward to it. So I was glad that we finally got to see that. And just a note on that, when people were hating Jim Carrey's Biden, and you can think whatever you want to think about Jim Carrey's Biden, they were comparing it to Sudeikis' Biden. Well, he did that a lot, but I never thought it was a good impression. It was just a character that he chose to do, and it really didn't represent anything about Joe Biden at all. And I do kind of like.
Wait, are you saying that for Sudeikis or for Carrey?
For Sudeikis. Sudeikis. And I do like impersonations that actually give some impression of the person. So I think Alex Moffat actually does a really good Biden. It's not quite Dana Carvey, excuse me.
Seriously.
It's definitely not Dana. Yeah, but it's not quite Dana Carvey, but it's very good. It's very good, I think. And so it was great to see him back. Martin Short was hilarious. The character of Doug Emhoff wasn't like a brilliant character, just him being like the goofy, nerdy guy. But whatever they had going on in that sketch, I feel like Martin Short, I want to think that on some minor nuanced level, not whole lines, but just there's a little bit of, it felt like something had to be improvised just slightly a couple times. I felt like I saw Maya's eyes kind of bug out with genuine surprise. And like she laughed in almost an uncomfortable, but like the nervous type of, I don't know where this is going, but I'm along for the ride kind of thing. And I love those types of moments. So I thought there was a little bit of mystery hidden away here, and kind of something special going on between the two of them. So to me, it was intriguing, and it had Martin Short, and he's amazing. People always talk about, the next version of someone, how Farley wanted to be Belushi, or Davidson wants to be Sandler. I haven't heard anyone say this, but I swear to God, Sherry O'Terry, I feel like she had to be more influenced by Martin Short than anyone else. There's something about the spastic and the brightness, this exploding little character. I think Sherry O'Terry really wanted to be Martin Short, and I don't mean that as any sort of slight that she wasn't finding her own path. But I think Sherry O'Terry, it was kind of like a disciple of Martin Short, and I've always thought that. I just wanted to get it out there. Rich, please bring it on.
Well, I was going to say that would have been a great take for the Derek Jeter Sum 41 episode back in the day if we did a roundtable on that. Rich, go ahead.
No, I was literally what Andrew said. I want to use a judo move against you. I'm also a huge Martin Short fan, and there was such a fun looseness. One of the things, to me, that it was the sketch was Martin Short and everything else was second. I would bet that if we could get video from the dress rehearsal, the looseness that they had was probably not there in the cold open when all your eyes are on you and it's like, here's the lines, here's the hit. And when he got relegated to 1150, I bet that he was like, you're gonna put me at 1150, all right, you're gonna get 1150 Martin Short. I think he went in to kiss her and that wasn't part of the script. And to me, yeah, you could just open up the door, just give Martin Short the rest of the show. But I wonder if it was better, we liked him more because it wasn't the cold open. Just saying.
Interesting. Nicole, jump in here.
Yeah, so I know I was originally put on the stand to debate Rich about the order of things, but I think I need to debate Haynes on Sudeikis' Biden. If it wasn't clear already, I'm a huge Jason Sudeikis fan. I mean, if anyone caught my sweatshirt, Golden Globes, his whole thing. I had to buy it. I mean, I love him so much. He's my favorite in terms of his role on the show and everything that he did as an everyman who also wasn't afraid to get weird, and he was perfect. He's my top 3. I'll give you Maya, Jason.
Save it for the Jason pod.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll discuss another time. But I think he's a great Biden, and that's my point for now. My last thing, I'm not as big on Martin Short, and I was a little bit caught off guard with the kiss that when Maya's eyes opened up as that text came on the screen at the same time. It was like, I mean, that came out of nowhere. It looked like she was like, "Are we going to kiss? Are we going to kiss?" And then he just went for it. And it's not really my style of humor, but I guess I'd rather have that at 11:52 than 11:34. So we'll go with that. If it were going to happen, I'm glad it happened when it did.
Yeah. And look, for me, I always like to come in with a very clear take about, my opinion on this. But I felt like I needed therapy on Saturday night. Like literally at 2 a.m, I was like, there were so many things about the rundown that I was confused about that I needed somebody to just say like, "Hey, John, like, let's talk this out a little bit." But I think that I've settled on the fact that I think the Kamala sketch should have been the cold open. I think that was the Spring Break game show was the better sketch, but I felt like the Kamala sketch had something in it that even if it didn't work, they could improve upon because all the eyes were on it, because it was the cold open moving forward. And here's the thing. Here's my ultimate thing. I do feel like I love Martin Short. I loved his time on the show. I do think that Maya and Marty are living in the shadow of what they did on the 40th anniversary with Marty with the fan. And I feel like they tried to recapture this magic in their sketch show. And again, in something like this sketch where these two have the chemistry that they think they do. And they do sometimes, but I don't think it's as strong as SNL wanted it to be in this particular sketch. But I do think they captured something interesting. And it's like we talked about with Jim Carrey and Biden, trying to figure out what the take was going to be on Biden. I was trying to watch this with open eyes to figure out what the take was on Kamala. And it was interesting for me to see this Doug Emhoff walk in, her husband, and kind of play this, like meek and kind of like a weenie. Like he was kind of being like bossed around by her. And I almost felt like there was something there where Maya could have played Kamala as like a little bit more like dominatrix style. And I felt like that was where the comedy would have been really mined. And I almost imagined that like a Will Forte or a Beck Bennett would have been the perfect role for a Doug Emhoff in this case, because they can play that weak-minded male so well. And I didn't feel like Marty, as much as we love him, was the right person for the character that they may have been going for. Rich, do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to bring up a different point, which is very much in line, which is, in the first half of the season, when Maya was showing up doing cameos as Kamala, she was so fun. It was often the most fun part of those sketches. But in hindsight, her Kamala was Batman to Alec Baldwin's Joker. What I think made her so strong is that she was the perfect Batman to the Donald Trump huge presence, huge ridiculous character that Alec Baldwin was playing. Now you take that character out of the sketches and you've just got Batman in his Batcave with Robin and Alfred, and it's like, it's kind of a shrug. It's kind of not all that. So I think that you have a problem with what is this character without the foil that the character was created to combat in the first place. So I don't know. I agree that I think that, the Doug thing was an interesting idea, but that the character of Kamala in this sketch didn't actually make me laugh more than maybe once or twice, where in previous sketches I was laughing at her a lot.
That's a great point. And I also loved what Haynes brought up, because I don't know if everybody has seen Dana Carvey's Biden on Colbert, but he did the most like brilliant impression of Biden that I've seen personally. And I think it's kind of hard to watch that and then watch what Moffat's doing. As much as we're all rooting for Moffat and want him to nail this Biden impression, my hope is that Alex gets an opportunity to lead his own sketch as Biden, even though Rich very eloquently said on the Christmas show that it's great to have a cast member playing Biden because the whole sketch doesn't have to be written about him. I do hope that Alex at least gets that opportunity once or twice. So that was probably the last point I wanted to make. But actually, no, one more thing I just wanted to say about that sketch before we move on. I loved the Ella Emhoff thing where she walks into the Donatella Versace music, which I think was a nod to Maya's very famous impression of Versace that she did many times on the show. So just something to point out.
I did think the Bushwick joke should have gotten more of a laugh. It was kind of silent, and you would think that a lot of those people are from New York, but I guess also like people have been moving to Bushwick since like 2010 or something. Is it still weird? Is Bushwick still weird, Nicole?
I mean, it's still Bushwick when you say, oh, Bushwick, but when you actually go to Bushwick, it's not that weird anymore. But it's still, I think the joke still should have hit a little more than it did.
Yeah, you get a Roberta slice and get out. Yeah.
If we're going to talk about that sketch before we move on, because it goes to me a theme of the show, which is I thought the most brilliant piece was just Martin Short and the dog stuffed animal. That was so stupid and so fun. Didn't make any logical sense. It was just to see him rolling around on the floor on live TV with a puppet. I just thought that was brilliant. That was so.
You can't have Martin Short and not have physical comedy.
Of course.
Does anyone else want to touch on anything from the Spring Break Game Show or this sketch before we move on to everything else? Okay, perfect. So, Rich, let me start with you. Is there another sketch from the evening that you would like to talk about?
I mean, there's a lot of sketches. I just in looking at the sketches, I wanted to sort of just the bigger thought that sort of really feeds into how I really liked this episode. I know that it was problematic. I liked it a lot. For a very specific reason. I think the great episodes of SNL, it's either great performances, great writing, or it's a party, and then the truly special episodes are all three. This was not an episode of great writing. This was not an episode necessarily of it feeling like a party, but I felt like this was a pure performance episode. So there were a lot of, Martin Short, it was, I thought was just a brilliant performance, a lot of performances in the cold open. So, to me, I want to bring up the Hot Ones sketch, which was not brilliantly written, but I thought it was such a fun Maya performance. The fearlessness that she has to milk a line and to just sit in a moment as a character we've seen her do before. But when she was asking her assistant to take my wig off, put 6 ice cubes up on my head, then put my wig back on, over and over again, I laughed harder every time. And so even though it was just that, it was just watching a performance of her as Beyonce, there was nothing brilliant about the writing in the sketch. I thought it was hilarious. I really loved the sketch.
For sure. Haynes, you had a strong reaction to Rich talking about that one, so go ahead with your opinion.
Well, I mean, I want to see Maya be Beyonce all day also, but it was very one note, and you know what a Hot Ones sketch is going to be as soon as it opens, that it's going to be kind of just a progression of someone having a hard time handling the questions and stuff. So it was what you would expect it to be. And of course, Maya's great, but she had plenty of other sketches that I feel like I just enjoyed a lot more. I just wasn't in love with it from top to bottom. I'm glad that they got a few other cast members in there. Keenan did look great in that wig. That was very funny. And funny seeing Alex come in for a split second at the end as the agent who is, ready to destroy everything. And if you don't sign an NDA on the way out, you're getting shot. So it was pretty funny, but it was one of my least favorite sketches of the night. It was, it was down there with Barfly Awards for me. I wasn't big on either of those.
One day we're going to find something that both the two of you agree on. All right, Nicole, tell me what you thought about Hot Ones.
I am so with you, Haynes. It was I thought it was one of the weakest ones, and I contrasted it. I rewatched the sketch from, I think it was 2012, of Beyonce and Jay Pharoah playing Jay-Z when Blue Ivy was born, and it was sort of a rotating celebrity kind of hurrah. Everybody, lots of cameos. White Butler, Andy Samberg was letting them all in, and it was just so the contrast was kind of unsettling to me, because Beyonce, I love Beyonce. I cried when she broke records at the Grammys a few weeks ago. I love her, but she's not funny. It doesn't matter how funny Maya Rudolph is. Beyonce, there's not a lot of ways to make her funny if she's not contrasted with more eccentric and quirky characters. I think Beyonce is funny when you're contrasting her with the ridiculousness of the world and you realize how grounded and a little bit extra and diva-ish maybe she might be, but then also she's just so grounded in herself and her own personal power, and that's why she's an icon to me. But the reason that one that I loved from 9 years ago was so funny was because of the Beyonce surrounded by and reacting to all of these different characters, and it's very hard to make Beyonce funny when she's just being Beyonce, you know. So I didn't like it. I thought, if you're going to do Beyonce, it can't just be 6 minutes of not that much going on. At least she could have sang a little. I know she gave us a little note in the middle there, but I agree. I think, Haynes, you said you like that kind of quick writing, a lot of jokes. I'm the same exact way. And I didn't love it. My favorite part was when Mikey Day, as Sean, was giving the parody names of the hot sauces, and they were, you know, diarrhea, whatever. That was my favorite part, because I need words, I need jokes, or else I get bored. Even if it's Beyonce and Maya Rudolph as Beyonce. Like, for me to have been bored with Maya Rudolph as Beyonce is a powerful sentiment. That says a lot.
Yeah, see, I think I'm more on the side of Rich with this one. I think for me, this was when I watched this live, it didn't do as much for me when I watched this on a second watch, but I could just see that I thought that Maya's facial expressions were so well played. Like, this is one of those sketches that if you're looking at ever like a case study on Maya and her show, like her history with the show, you could look at the facial expressions that she has, and they say so much about how you should react to this sketch. And that's why I really enjoyed it, because it was really great to see Maya's acting chops. Like, when you watch a sketch, and maybe we'll talk about it, maybe we won't, but like something like The Choreographers, that's the type of thing that's like very overplayed, very overacted. But for her, all she had to do is just pretend like she was sitting in a sauna, and I think that she played that off so well that it made the enjoyment of the sketch much better for me, even though I was a little bit distracted, because when it opened up for 2 seconds, I thought it was La Revista della Televisione with Bill Hader, because of the backdrop. Okay, so Haynes, let me head over to you. Give me a sketch that you want to talk about.
So, I mean, I could talk about The Choreographers, because I thought that was not a great sketch either.
Well, do you want to talk about it? Because we don't have to. If you want to talk about something else, go ahead.
I thought it'd be fun to talk about, because I didn't think it was. Yeah. I thought. I mean, I just don't know. It was a little bit. It definitely had some kind of 10-to-1 vibes in it. A little bit, I guess. That it was. I didn't understand why Keennan's character didn't know what things were. Like, why he was like, "Take me to the dark window." It's like, you mean the chalkboard or whatever? And then he says, "Why do you have? Let's meet me at the picture of Jean-Benet Ramsey." I mean, it's funny to get a reference to a child murder, I guess, but that's my dark sense of humor. But I didn't understand why he was. But I didn't understand why he was making those types of, why he didn't understand how the world worked and stuff. I just didn't think it was too long. I thought it was way too long. There was and just not enough jokes. There was a couple funny things, though. I did think it was funny when the sketch was first opening, and you hear someone say, you know, that we have learned that kissing can spread coronavirus, and you hear Chris Redd in the background go like, "Man, Fauci should have said that." thought that was pretty funny. And then and there was a moment that I did not catch live, but on the rewatch really intrigued me. Maya starts doing a thing where she goes, where she's dancing, and she goes like, "A chaga boo, chaga ba, kunk." And when she says kunk, if you look in the background, Chloe breaks for half a second. She's like standing like this, and she goes and like puffs out. And then a split second later, half of Mississippi after that, Chris breaks because of Chloe's break, and you just see his whole body like convulse and then come back into place. And I love those types of moments, especially on rewatch. You don't always get to catch them when you're watching it live because, you know, typically your eyes are on the person with the lines. But I love that kind of stuff in the background. And so there actually were some hidden gems in this. But to me, I thought choreographers, Hot Ones, and Barfly didn't do it for me. None of them were Fs, but they were all kind of Cs for me.
Yeah.
A lot of C sketches.
You guys are missing great choreography if you're not watching the video. Haynes is an excellent dancer, so thank you for doing that for us. Nicole, what did you think of this sketch?
Yeah, well, Haynes, I was with you until you described it. I didn't like it, but you've sold it to me now. I want to go watch Chloe and Chris break. Something about me, and I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts. I do not like breaking when it's people who break a lot. Bill Hader, I love him, but it's an eye roll for me when it's someone who breaks a lot. The Fallon thing, I love Jimmy Fallon now. If I were a little older during his time and I was really watching every week, and I would not have liked that at all. But I do, what my favorite thing is when people who don't usually break. And Chloe Fineman seems like such a professional and she is really on it all the time. And so for her to break, of all people, is something that makes it worth watching for me. So I'm going to go back and watch. You inadvertently sold it to me.
And I think, and I wasn't trying to sell it because I didn't like it that much, but they were, I think they were the types of breaks that a person like you would like because they're very nuanced and they immediately tighten back up. You know, they're not letting themselves be in the break. You know, it's like, right. It's genuine. It's very genuine.
Right. And when you're trying, like some people, when they break, they're just like, all right, screw it. Here we go. I ruined it. But when people are trying so hard, what you described with the convulsion, that's the funniest to me. And then they pull themselves back, but they have to do something or make a weird noise, or that's iconic to me. I'll watch it all day.
Yeah, Rich, what did you think about Haynes' favorite sketch of the night, choreographers?
I probably, like you guys, I didn't love it. It was probably one of my least favorite sketches, but I do want to offer a theory on it, which is when I was watching it, I was like, okay, whatever. But listening to it, I was like, oh, this sketch killed at the table read, because no one makes Lorne Michaels laugh at a table read more than Kenan Thompson. And you put Kenan and Maya, and even though it's about choreography, there's very little visual. Even the choreography at the end felt like it was done in between the dress rehearsal and the live show. It was so lame. I really think that this was a sketch that just Kenan chewed the scenery at the table read. Maya played along. It had Lorne doubled over laughing, and they put it on, even though, truthfully, when it got up on its feet, maybe it didn't deserve to make it to the show. Yeah,
Rich, you had mentioned pre-show you wanted to make a note about the Maya and Kenan relationship. Was there anything you wanted to elaborate on there?
I mean, I think that, well, first of all, it's, in a way, you see Maya and Kenan working together a lot. And, often when an alumni comes on, they bring with them, or we see other alumni like Tina Fey or Rachel Dratch, because it's like the old school. It is kind of insane to think Maya left the show 14 years ago. And when she left, Kenan had been on with her for 4 years. That's how long Kenan's been on the show. So it was sort of like, I felt like every time they were in a sketch together, it felt like an alumni cameo, because it was two old friends getting to work together again. It's just that Kenan never left the show.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. Okay, Nicole, let's head over to you. Is there a sketch that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about NFTs because I think we're all on the same page here that Pete Davidson has had his best season yet. Are we all in agreement there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, the bar was so low, it's hard not to, but yes.
Yeah.
Dramatic increase, dramatically better. Yeah.
Radical, truly. Yeah. So I loved him as Eminem in the fall. That was probably like top 5 sketches of the last 3 years or so, I would say. It's just its ability to be so culturally relevant now and also bring back iconic references from before. I think people who are 5 years old, 10 years old would love it, and they have no idea what it's referencing. The best sketches are the ones that have these references that if you get it, it is instant and immediate and hilarious, but if you're coming of age and you don't get it, you still think it's funny. And so love that. And I think that was so well received that they brought a version of it back with, again, an old Eminem, bringing that back as a throwback, but the new reference of NFTs, which is very NFT WTF kind of vibes. It's I have some crypto. My friend told me to invest, but it's the same thing as I don't really know what it is. We talk about it. No matter how much we talk about it, it's still kind of what is this? And the whole radical, cool edits, all that stuff summed it up really well for me. We don't really know what it is, but we're all kind of on board at the same time. And there's something really cool about that and satisfying. So I love that one.
Well, Haynes, if you had to ask me what the theme of my Passover Seder was like a few hours before this episode, it was what the hell's an NFT? So that was literally all we were talking about at the table. And then this sketch came up. It was perfect. Haynes, what did you think about it?
It was fine. It was okay. Let's be honest. It didn't compare to the other musical pre-tape of the night. I haven't brought it up yet because I just figured we're going to have a robust conversation about the Boomer song. And to me, that blew the NFTs out of the water. I did kind of enjoy it because I like a catchy tune. And I also don't truly understand these abstract concepts of blockchain and such, but it was fine. It was just fine. It did have this really had some 10-to-1 vibes in that it was earlier in the show, and then we're cutting to these very strange characters. It wasn't just Pete, and then all of a sudden there's Morpheus and other folks. And actually, one thing I did take away from that, you can really tell when they have like a guest rapper come rap. Their verses are just like 100 times smoother. Like Jack Harlow he immediately sounded like a rapper. Like it gave it legitimacy. Like his cadence, he just fell into it so naturally. I bet he read the lyrics once and just like banged it out. So not to get too much into the unfunny part of it, but that was something that I took away from it. And, I'll just say, we don't talk a lot about the musical guests on this show. Are there other rappers really like ever who just use their like regular name and don't have like a nickname? Like he's just like Jack Harlow. Like, I remember Mike Jones. That wasn't just a song. Did he call himself Mike Jones too? But no one else. Like who else just calls themselves like a first and last name?
When I heard Jack Harlow, I was like, wait, is that the guy from Pirates of the Caribbean? So I'm probably not the right guy to ask.
Yeah, Jack Sparrow, Jack Harlow, all the same. But that's really great. Actually, I think there is, and people who are rap fans, don't kill me in the comments tomorrow. But I think Jack Harlow has a thing where a lot of his songs are actually named after NBA players. So maybe there is a thing there why he went with his own name for that. But that is an interesting point. Rich, can you tell me what you thought about this NFT cryptocurrency sketch, and maybe contrast it to the Boomers Got the Vax one, because Haynes brought that one up?
Well, on this sketch, I really liked this sketch, but I was on that edge of I thought it was going to turn and I was going to love it, and I never got there. What I liked about it a lot is really everything that Nicole said. Pete was great. Writing was really fun. The energy was great. They kept mixing it up. It was a great pace. As someone who's a nerd and who's been having to explain NFTs, I thought they did not even bother to take a fun take at what an NFT is. They did not take a legitimate run at explaining what it is and actually be helpful. All it was a Mad Lib list of dumb things that could be NFTs. So I felt, as much as I really enjoyed it, I will forget this sketch by the middle of the next sketch because they didn't actually say anything. And I thought it was such a missed opportunity because so many of the other parts of this were just great, and Pete was great. And if they could have had an actual comic take on NFTs that was better than what people say on Twitter, it would have been something that I think could have gone viral. And I don't know that this will make that level.
Yeah, and there may have been something there with all these people buying people's first tweets. I think there may be something, some comedy to mine there. Rich, can you just contrast that though with the Boomers Got the Vax one? Did you like that one a lot better?
Yeah, I actually like them both a lot. I mean, I think, I really like the Boomer sketch. I thought this was, and I want to hear, I think Andrew will have more to say about it, but I liked that it was a very specific take. It was a little bit hard for me because I know so many different kinds of boomers as it relates to Trump, the vaccine, wearing masks. I don't think of even in my social circle. Now, I'm of an age where I have a lot more boomer friends than you guys do, other than your parents. But so for me, the one thing that was a little bit hard about the boomer sketches, they were kind of saying all our boomers are this one thing, and that didn't comedically resonate with me. But there was so much fun in this, and I thought this was such a great group exercise. Like, I went back and go, who stood out in that sketch? And the answer to me was everybody did. Everybody was fun. Chris and Mikey and Keenan, everybody was funny in that sketch. So, and it was just, and even when certain things became a little bit like, okay, we've already hit that note once, they really moved on. So just the pacing of what they were saying about boomers, while for me it was a little bit of an overgeneralization, it kept moving, which I really liked.
Yeah. Haynes, you want to jump in on that?
I thought this was hands down the best product of the night. I loved every single second of this. I have been singing it. IMMUNITY. That's what I got. I got the body's anti. I love everything. Everything about it. Love everything about it. I love the homage to the Mo Money, Mo Problems video. I love, even there was something kind of more subtle that was not popular with the rap of 1997, but they did a little call and response thing. Climate denier, license expired. That was very reminiscent of the late 80s, ending in 91-ish before when they stopped that kind of call and response stuff. So I really I loved so much about this. We got the return of Edith Puthie. That was amazing. I loved Edith Puthie the first time, and so getting her back was awesome.
I'm trying to see how many times you can say this without flubbing it.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought there was a lot of good jokes. Like Rich said, they did paint kind of a broad brush of boomers, but 80 reading the menu with a flashlight. I'm definitely.
By the way, that's not funny. That's not a funny joke, guys.
It's
dark. It's very small print, and the light on your phone it was made for reading restaurant menus. Oh, that was 80s. My person. Love it.
Yeah. I'm glad we like. So listen, there's something we agree on. We both love that joke. That was a great joke.
Great joke. A lot of great jokes.
And who was the extra? Who was the extra that was that was flicking off the little kid?
Yeah.
That was hilarious. I just want to know who that lady was. I thought it was, I don't know if anyone's seen A Christmas Story that TBS plays once a year for 24 hours. And there's this scene where the kids, Ralphie's daydreaming in class, that his teacher grades his paper, and she goes to the chalkboard and goes, A+++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++ felt about this. A plus 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 plus. Loved it.
Yeah. Nicole, what did you think about this sketch?
I agree. It was the best product. It's the one in 5 years. What am I most likely to go click on YouTube? It's this one for sure. It was everything about it. Edith Puthie, the fact that she is officially a recurring character of Ego Modems, it's cause for celebration. I want to throw a party. We know she's everything, and the setup, the homage to Biggie and how he kind of introduced her, there was just something very special there. Everything about the Biggie stuff was really, really special and imaginative and cool. But then just that setup was cool. It was like she was like, don't forget about me. I'm the heart of this. It's like she was like standing her ground and making it clear that she was the winner. And for me, as I've said, I love the quick, fast jokes. I usually prefer the beginning of sketches to the end of sketches, just because that's where my attention is. And then I can get bored easily. So the fact that she was at the end and it was my favorite part, again, it's telling. So I loved it. I will definitely in 5 years stumble upon it on YouTube and watch it 3 times in a row, and then do the same thing a year later. Loved it.
Yeah, I love the notorious Mckinnon. That was amazing. Edith also. Haynes, was this the reason you were asking me pre-show if you could swear on the show because you wanted to say Edith?
No, and honestly, I didn't real. Are we? Is that a cuss word? Am I not allowed to say? Am I not allowed to say that? I'm sorry.
If they say no, of course. If they say pussy on SNL, you can say it on the show for sure. Whatever you can say on SNL, you can say on this show. So that's it's a family show, but it's totally fine. Okay, guys. I can't believe this hasn't come up because I have to say that this sketch was maybe my sketch of the year. I'm going to put a caveat on it that I will delay the actual official John sketch of the year until after the season. But this backstage memory sketch at the end of the night was why I needed therapy, because I was watching this sketch and I was like, how is this coming up at 12:57? I don't understand it. Like, it was perfect to end the evening on. I get it. My friend Andrew Dick from That Week in SNL, he was like, where else would you put it? I don't have a good answer for that. Maybe you guys can help me with that. But I have to say, watching this sketch, everything about this was, like Rich would say, chef's kiss. It was so perfect. Her walking down the hall. We love seeing the meta-ness, talking about Derek Jeter and Jeff Gordon and Sum 41. And for me, the moment of the night, this Kevin Spacey moment. And, we were talking about Maya's look as Beyonce, and just her ability to look at a photo and turn away was so brilliant because it's just so understated. She didn't need to do much there, but it's the brilliance of Maya that she could pull that off and give me my laugh out loud moment of the night. I'm going to leave the rest for you guys to talk about, but between Tina and Rachel and everything we got in this, I felt like this for me was a 10 out of 10. Rich, what'd you think about it?
Oh, loved it. It was the perfect way to end the night. I would say my favorite joke, and I will misquote it, is Tina Fey as a groundbreaking female writer. She's the one who came up with the idea that the female cast could talk. I was like, oh, there's such truth behind Tina Fey making that joke.
Serious question. How many people Googled that character's name to see if she was a real SNL writer?
Totally.
I
looked up Google search trends this morning, actually, and Gloria Zellwig on Saturday. It was obviously no one looked it up, and then skyrocket. So you're not alone. Everyone around the country was doing it. I looked on Google.
Yeah,
I loved this sketch so much that I thought maybe there was a chance that the pre-tape was directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. That's how much I thought it was that good, and it wasn't. It was Paul Brigante, who's one of our great SNL directors. He did a great job, but that's how much I thought. Just the style, very much a shining, piece, but really everything about it, I thought that the look, the tone, the pacing, everyone in it was just super funny. It was really great.
Yeah, Haynes, what do you think about it?
I thought it was awesome, but I thought it was it was more cool than funny. Like it was very. I mean, I dug the whole thing, and I love Kubrick, and so I loved it, but I thought it was kind of more artsy than fartsy. Like I didn't get that many didn't get that many laughs out of it, but I thought it was a very cool thing, and I do think it was a great way to end the night. It was a nice kind of cap evening because of that cool vibe.
I think that's exactly. I think that's why it had to go at the end, because it was stylized and cool, and it slowed the pace down because it was so measured and considered. To then try to come back with the choreographer sketch would have been like, what the heck? This was a nice way to sort of slide into the goodnights.
It was a great way to wind it down into the goodnights, and they were particularly warm goodnights because it's Maya, and this is her family, and her literal family was in the audience. So yeah, I think you're right. It was just a great dovetail into that.
Yeah, I agree. I also noticed there was something understated about Moffat being the bartender, and now I'm getting so used to them being Kamala and Biden. So that I'm sure I wasn't the only one who had a little association of them and how it kind of, there's something metaphorical about it, however you interpret it. He's kind of serving her, or she's kind of the boss, and he knows what she wants, and he's like gonna give it to him, a beer garita. So there was just something kind of interesting about that choice. It could have been really any of the cast members, and it was him. So I liked that, and contrasted with the Tina Fey stuff and that that nod to the lack of proper feminism of the past. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was great. And I did hear, I did some sleuthing after the show, and I did hear that Tina had a large part to do with this particular sketch. And I really appreciated that, because I do find that this writing crew, as great as they are sometimes, has a particular style for some of the sketches that tend to repeat. And I did feel like this sketch was different. It was something that we haven't seen necessarily in season 46. And the last thing I'll say about it is this sketch, not to be too grand, but this sketch is an example of why I do this podcast in the first place. I really feel that there is nothing you can get. Nicole's making a face, so she's making me laugh. But I was going to say there's when you watch all 46 seasons of the show, there's no other show out there that you can appreciate as much when you see a sketch like this and start to get all the references and really feel the grandness of the history of the show. And it's moments like these why I love watching the show on Saturday nights and seeing these things, because I know I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch this sketch for years to come. So, for me, that's a good place to kind of end our conversation about sketches, unless anyone wants to talk about this Barfly one. I think that's the only one we didn't cover.
I'll give it a note. It was not a great sketch. The writing of this sketch is better than you think. The acting and the characters, I thought, was a kind of a directorial miss for whoever, whichever writer was producing it. But there were a lot of good written jokes as in the awards, in the nominations of the awards. There were a lot of laughs that got lost. So I wanted to at least give it that tip of the hat, even though it wasn't a great sketch.
For sure. And I'll also shout out to Cecily walking into the camera every time she walked off stage. I felt like that was a nice touch for that sketch. Haynes, do you have anything on that?
No, I again, that was one of my highlights, was just seeing Cecily bump into the camera twice and getting to see her do it a second time, just to confirm that the first time was not an accident, definitely on purpose. No, I didn't think it was a great sketch. I think it's a great vehicle, the awards show, because you get to, you have all these types of people in the audience and you get to bring different folks out on the stage. It's not so different than the game show, where it just gives you an avenue to bring in a lot of different types of characters. Love, a broad array of characters, but I don't mean to be overly reductive. It always just comes down to laughs for me. I didn't get that many laughs out of it. I don't know why. So not huge on it.
I love the award show vehicle because we're talking about how SNL can be savage in 2021. Kevin Spacey joke is the perfect example of how to achieve that. I think award shows are right up there too. The sexual harassment awards a couple of years ago. It's a great vehicle if it's chosen correctly. This one didn't do it for me. The only other piece I'll add is 80s character was just giving me Carrie Crum vibes. It was the same accent she was doing, and I don't love that character. So I was I was over it pretty quickly from that, among other reasons. And the award show is, I want Tina to come back and write some award shows, because she can do that savage humor with that vehicle. So I want that soon.
Yeah.
When I look at this cast of SNL, Kate McKinnon for me really started to pop early on when she was doing the late night Barfly sketches, McDouligans, I can't remember what they're called, where it's always her end up making out with the other person. And one of the brilliant things about her performance is she never plays drunk. Even though it's 4 a.m. in a dive bar and she's a barfly, she plays it straight. And I think that's where this sketch really missed. If they would have played it that way, I think there would have been a lot more opportunity for fun characters that all just kind of got watered down into a stereotype.
Yeah, that's the Sheila Sauvage.
That's a great point, because she at late at night when most people are at the bar and they're doing what they're doing, they're sloppy and this and that, but it just shows this authenticity of that Sheila character is actually, she's in her right mind. Her right mind is just a little kooky. I love that point. I have to go rewatch now. Sold me. Everyone's selling me on all these things I have to rewatch.
I want to say I'm feeling a little bit invigorated by this conversation as well. I think I just got an idea from something Nicole said, talking about Tina and the awards shows. Honestly, next time Tina or Amy host a show, because when they hosted the Golden Globes together, those 3 times were so fantastic. And the jokes were so good. I don't know who else they had writing those jokes with them, but the jokes were so good. I would absolutely love next time one of them hosts, if the monologue turned into a Golden Globes parody, and they brought out the other person and then had people stand up in the audience, and they like ripped people in the audience as if they were famous celebs. Just throwing it out there. Write it, guys.
That would be
I love
great.
that.
Love it.
Another top sketch for me of all time is Meet Your Second Wife, from when Amy and Tina hosted together in 2015. So savage and just like light, but also it's well received. And then if you think about it more and more, you can rewatch it and analyze it. But just at the surface, it's hilarious. It's everything I love about Tina and Amy when they're together. Everyone should go rewatch that. It's like
amazing sketch. Amazing.
Incredible. Genius.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's stop gushing about former cast members. Let's talk about the current cast a little bit. Rich, let me start with you. Was there any cast members who stood out to you or didn't that you would like to point out?
A couple specifically, but, and I got cut off last time. I lost my internet when I was going to say, with the cast member who I think, even when she doesn't have the best material, can do so much with so little, is one of my favorites, Cecily Strong. And Weekend Update, when she came out as Sydney Powell, I thought it was just going to be a just redundant Marjorie. I'm blanking on the name of the character she did. To Marjorie, exactly. And the turkey waddle call that she was doing, the faces she was making was so fun, and I loved her in that. So Bowen Yang probably had the more memorable piece because it was heartfelt as well as, and maybe someone else will talk about that, but I didn't want that to get lost because I thought she did a great job. I also just want to say, as far as cast members go, the person who popped with the most little for me this episode was Chloe Fineman. I thought that there were a number of times, whether it was the cold open or other sketches, or the Kamala sketch, where she didn't have that much, but she really sold it in a Maya Mckinnon way that just in one line had me giggle. So great job by her as well.
Absolutely. Haynes, what about you? Anyone stood out to you?
I didn't feel like there was any cast member that particularly took over this episode for me. Anytime Cecily's doing characters, I guess I am kind of enchanted by just how well she punches through them. And she actually did do Marjorie Taylor Greene during the political. She came in through the window. She only comes in through the windows now, apparently. So she was great, but no, I didn't think to myself that one character really, or one cast member really stood out and took over this show. I was, on paper, seeing that Andrew Dismukes was in 5 sketches, that makes you go like, wow, really? Andrew Dismukes is in 5 sketches? That's great. And I've really been rooting for him, and I've loved the way he's been coming on. But, he was pretty much background and all that stuff. It is funny now that we know that he was going to stay through the entirety of the monologue originally, and then I guess they decided to cut him. They threw in that line, or she decides to ask him how old he was, and he was 5. So that the Secret Service comes and gets them out of there. I also thought the monologue was pretty funny too. When Maya goes, "Isn't it better without him here?" And Lauren was kind of like, "I guess," and Punky didn't look like she was kidding when she was like, "Absolutely." I don't know. I just got to laugh out of that. Yeah. So no one cast member I felt like was really dominating in this episode. And that's the way I like it. It was a great performance by the cast all around. I love big group LFNYs. So when we get everybody to jump in, during the cold open, and you get a nice group of 8 or 10 people all saying live from New York, it's Saturday night. Love it. It feels like a family affair. And so I like this kind of episode.
Yeah, it's perfect. And what I will say about Andrew is, him being in that backstage memory sketch to me is very monumental, because that's the type of thing that gets replayed for decades to come. And they're like, oh yeah, even if he doesn't have this incredible career on SNL, Andrew Dismukes in his rookie year being in a sketch that talks about a very meta version of Saturday Night Live is very monumental in my opinion. Nicole, was there anyone you wanted to talk about from the cast?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, John. I think if he becomes huge, a John Mulaney kind of guy or whatever it is in his future, this sketch will be something people reference constantly. Oh, and they joked about him being in a paid uniform. That if he has this illustrious career, this sketch will be iconic for so many reasons. But for him, I can see it. It's very, very telling that they made that decision, and I think it shows the faith that the writers, Lauren, everybody has in him. So I like to see that. I think everyone's rooting for him.
I was gonna say, it reminds me, just quickly, Nicole, sorry to interrupt, but I was just gonna say it reminds me of, I think it was Taron Killam and Bobby Moynihan were fighting on the ground during Justin Timberlake's Five Timers Club sketch, and then Bobby's like, "I killed my friend," and it's just like those types of things when you have young cast members in them and you go look back, you're like, oh yeah, that was the beginning of their careers. Like it's interesting to see stuff like that. Sorry to interrupt, Nicole, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, at the surface, I'm thinking there's really no cast member that stood out, and that, contrary to what you said, Haynes, that's not how I like it. I like ending an episode being like, this person, I mean, we need more. We've had so many ego-centric episodes lately where we're just like, she's amazing. We need more and more. We love it, love it, love it. And I love when that happens, when I have this adrenaline and excitement about someone for their future and for what they, especially if it's a newer cast member, someone who's been there 1, 2, 3 years, just to see this excitement about what's to come. And the closest person I would award that internal thought that I usually have to is Dismukes, for sure. But also the Boomers one, where it was really ensemble vibes, as well as, to your point, Haynes, the Live from New York was huge, bigger than maybe the whole season. It was massive. That the Boomers is something that I think everybody should rewatch a couple times to appreciate every individual and their contributions. It's in most musical pre-recorded stuff, you don't need to watch it so many times to appreciate elements. You need to rewatch it just because it's a bop and it sounds good. But this one, there's so many things that I need to relive and give everyone their moment, because everyone, I mean, Kyle had 2 lines and it just, his energy, I love what he brought to it. I have to go back and appreciate. So I would say one of the big themes of this one was ensemble vibes contrasted with one of the few times we've really seen all those 3 featured players. I mean, maybe the first time we've seen them all standing together at all, but also just the first time they've really stood their own and kind of had the moment of, here I am, this is me. They've all just been kind of in little parts here and there. So for that felt like it was representing a shift in the show of, these guys are going to be something. It could be similar to the Dismukes situation of the other sketch of, we might look back at that and maybe someday Maya will star in a movie with one of them and it'll be iconic. And it's that's another reason, John, that similar to your point of how you love the show, it's such a time capsule. A sketch that is kind of fine now could be iconic later with different implications that we can't even envision yet.
Yeah, for sure. And we've had plenty of those introduce the rookie cast member sketches over the years. It's a little weird to get in episode 15, but it's a great point, Nicole. I will say that the one person I want to point out, and it's not necessarily for his contribution to the entire episode, but Rich made a point to mention Bowen Yang on Update. And what I will say is that I've always had the opinion, and this is my opinion personally, that I've always felt that in terms of comedy on Saturday Night Live, I've never personally enjoyed taking a step back from comedy to make, to share a message personally. I never felt like, SNL provides these cast members a platform to go on to their careers, and they will have plenty of opportunities to do great things with those platforms. I never thought that the 90 minutes for Saturday Night Live was necessarily meant for like, hey, here's a statement, regardless of whatever it is. That's how I've kind of felt throughout sketches over the years. But what I will say is that I felt like this was an exception for me, because this was obviously something that was near and dear to Bowen's heart that he wanted to say. It was wrapped. It was like a pig in a blanket, where the hot dog was, what he wanted to say, but it was wrapped in some comedy around it. So it was still funny for me, and I enjoyed that. And I also feel that Bowen, as a second-year cast member, we see him play Chen Biao or any, Asian stereotype or different people throughout, but we really haven't gotten to know Bowen Yang on the show. And this was our first really opportunity that I can remember of like, let's get to know who Bowen is as a person. And I think that moving forward, we'll be able to appreciate the characters and the impressions and the things that Bowen does over the next few years, because we've gotten to know him a little bit more and his personality through this particular sketch. So that's why I want to point him out, because I felt like it was important to do so. Anyone else want to touch on that before we move forward into next week?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. He has this phenomenal podcast with a fellow comedian, Matt Rogers. It's called Las Culturistas. If anyone's familiar, it has a huge cult following. People love it. It's just it's culture. They had, for example, all the Britney Spears stuff, they did a deep dive, and it's kind of that vibe. They have just great takes on culture, and it's fun and it's silly and lighthearted, but also very poignant. And this update segment to me felt like what all of the Las Culturistas listeners, the way they know Bowen, and it was giving the rest of the country, the SNL audience, that opportunity. So it felt the people I know who listen to Las Culturistas were just so happy, because they said, one of my friends said, this is the Bowen I already know, and he's being introduced to everyone just as Bowen, and he's a brilliant person. It's clear to me. You can tell sometimes when someone was a writer first, and he brought this writer energy with him at that. Of course, they're all writers, but there's just something about him, and I was glad that we all got to see that. I agree. It felt necessary so that going forward, we have a different appreciation for him.
Yeah. Haynes, do you want to touch on that?
Well, yeah. So, along with what you were saying, philosophically, I'm always laughs before lesson. Always. But this didn't feel like it was heavy-handed with the lesson. I felt like of laughs in there, although it was somewhat of it was like a little bit of a bumpy ride. I'm not sure why. I don't know why not every joke that he made landed. I heard some places where the audience like didn't laugh when I think they were supposed to. Maybe like when he changed direction. Maybe they didn't understand that the first line about chicken feet was we're moving into the making a point part of the bit, but he's also still making jokes, and then on examples 2 and 3 after that they were laughing, but they didn't know they should laugh on the first one. So I felt like there was, and that's a risk you take when you touch on serious subjects, to try and fill it with as many laughs as you can. And there's, you take a risk that people are not going to know exactly when they're allowed to laugh and when they aren't. So I thought as far as the end product, it was a little bumpier than probably, him or Lauren or anyone else had hoped that it would go, but I still enjoyed it. And I think you make a great point that, we haven't seen Bowen as himself, but, it's about damn time, because even though it's only his second year, I've said on this podcast before, he doesn't feel like a second year guy to me. Like he really feels like someone who's just knocking out of the park every chance he gets, and he's on pretty frequently. So it was, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was good, and I enjoyed it, even though I am laughs before lessons, but I think it was mostly laughs.
Yeah, I think we got a new Twitter handle for you at Laughs Before Lessons.
Love it.
Rich, did you want to say something before we move forward?
Similarly to what Haynes said, there was a little bit about the construct of the piece that I was a little confused at times. But even though I'm also Laugh Before Lessons, I did like this. And, I think what a credit to Bowen Yang, as we've all been saying, as just a strong cast member, period, that I forget that he's the first Chinese American cast member, and I think only the fourth Asian American in 46 years. So when there is an issue around Asian Americans in America, he's that just to me it was really stunning. I'm like, oh right, because I just think of him as a funny guy on the show. I don't think of him as Asian. I know that's that weird, like, I'm so politically correct I don't see, but like I just think of him as funny first. And so I felt like this was a really nice. It worked for me as this piece.
Yeah, for sure. Great job, Bowen. Let's move forward. Let's talk about Daniel Kaluuya coming in next week with musical guest St. Vincent. So Daniel Kaluuya of Get Out fame and Black Panther and Judas and the Black Messiah is now an Oscar nominee and a Golden Globe winner. So really great, high quality host they're bringing in who's coming in for the first time. Rich, are you excited to see Daniel Kaluuya?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I like him as an actor. Anytime you bring in a dramatic actor, who isn't used to live, isn't used to performing in front of an audience, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they hit out of the park. Sometimes it's a bit awkward. I know that in some of his stuff, he has had funny moments. So clearly he understands comedy. To me, it's a question mark. I don't know, but I'll be interested to see what he does. I like him.
Yeah. Haynes, what about you?
I love Daniel Kaluuya. All three of those movies are fantastic. I mean, his performance in Judas was amazing, and there are some other great performances in there as well. But I've said before, I don't see as much danger. I know what you're talking about, Rich, but a lot of these classically trained actors have spent a lot of time on the stage, before they were in movies and stuff. If they didn't, some people who are in movies, start out as models, but a lot of these people, start out as actors, like doing real theater work on stage. And I have no idea what Daniel Kaluuya's history is, but I do think that dramatic actors oftentimes are a really great surprise on SNL. Sometimes they have a natural command of the stage and timing and, working with other folks in that setting. So I'm really looking forward to it. I've been impressed with everything that he's done. If he gets out there and falls flat, yeah, it'll be disappointing because I do feel a little bit of hype behind this because I've been so impressed with all of his work up to this point. But I won't hold it against him if anything goes wrong, and I'm going to put my chips on positive. So,
Nicole, what do you think?
I'm so with you on dramatic actors being just they're so unpredictable, of course, as hosts, but that's what makes it great. Maya Rudolph, who is my whole world, was predictable, and we can, because she's basically been hanging out all season, there wasn't this wow effect compared to obviously Eddie Murphy, Adam Sandler. When they hosted, it was huge and every moment felt so special. Whereas with Maya, it was like, yeah, this is like just another episode in the fall. Of course she's here. She's making a funny appearance in a sketch. It's the usual. And with a dramatic actor, it's a similar feeling. Of course, I mean, it's not like when Eddie Murphy or Adam Sandler comes, but it's just this, you're kind of always on your toes and you're curious about every moment, and everything could go in a direction that you just aren't anticipating. Adam Driver is one of my favorite hosts of all time, and I never would have guessed that before I saw him host. It's just, he takes everything and he just owns it. He's legit. He's the kind of guy who I think will just pour everything into it, and that's hysterical to me. So I love dramatic actors as hosts. I don't know much about Daniel Kaluuya, but I am going to do a little bit of an Oscar movie marathon this week, and that will include his new movie, and then I'm going to watch some of his other stuff as well. So I'll be more informed by the episode, but all in all, I'm feeling very optimistic based on similar actors who I've loved as hosts before.
Yeah, absolutely. Rich, thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank our entire panel, but I'll start with you. Where can people reach out to you? And thank you for staying through the entire show this time.
It was novel. I like it. I will be appearing at a vaccination line in about 2.5 weeks. So please come on down, bring me cotton swabs and whatever else. And can't wait to come back, hopefully, for the next round of SNLs in May. Absolutely.
And people can reach out to you on social media where?
At Rich Tack. If you mention me, I'll see it. I'm a little burnt out on social media. So mental health has been a little bit better, but I, certainly always love to talk to people there.
Absolutely. Haynes, one of our great super fans, thank you for joining us. Where can people reach out to you? And do you have anything else to plug?
Well, you can always find me on Twitter at SNL Has a Cast, and I will also be hopping in that vaccination line. So I'm taking my card to Krispy Kreme. I don't care about my cholesterol. I hope my doctor's not listening. Just looking forward to getting out of this thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole, it was so wonderful to hear from you for the first time, your real thoughts on Saturday Night Live. Where can people reach out to you directly?
Yeah, thank you. I had a blast. I just at Nicole Rovine on Instagram and Twitter is where you'll find me. I won't be in the vaccination line, but I'll be on my computer refreshing for all my family members in the next few weeks. So, I'll be online on the virtual line. So that's where I'll be. But yeah, at Nicole Rovine, and then also our Instagram and Twitter at SNL Stats. Obviously, we've been doing some really cool new stuff there. So I think everyone, if you love the podcast, you'll love what we're doing on there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will not be in a vax line for a while. I will be getting the vaccination, hopefully, but Canada is a little bit slower than you guys. So we'll wait and see. Hopefully by the end of the season, I'll get something there. Let me talk a little bit about what has been happening on SNL Stats, what's going to be coming in the future. So if you only join us for our episode Roundtables, hear me out. Let me make a pitch to you what you're missing in the off weeks and what we produce. So a few weeks ago, we had a superfan takeover where we talked about the best digital shorts of all time. Haynes, you were on that episode. Give the listeners a pitch about why they should check it out.
If you like hot takes, come check out the superfans takeovers, especially when we rank things like digital shorts, impressions. We're going to touch on a lot of hot topics. I think they're always really great episodes because we have, these aren't, we have journalists on this show who have access to people that we don't have access to. We have former cast members on this show, right, who can tell you stories that we can't tell you. But with superfans, boy, you got buckets full of passion, and we get into it. I love being part of these superfan takeovers. I wouldn't miss them for the world, and I wouldn't want you to miss them either.
Yeah, except you did miss one, but we're not going to talk about that. Okay, well, that's really great. The week after that, a couple weeks back, we did our By the Numbers show with Mike Murray and Dave Buckman. They joined us. We broke down all the analytics. So if you're really interested in the stats components that we do on this podcast, check out that show. Mike does some great analytics there. And we also put up a 6 minute clip on YouTube of one segment from that show. So if you just want to, dip your toe in the water on that, you can check that out as well. And then last week, we were live for trivia night, which was really fun. We had some new guests that have never been on the show before. They joined us for trivia with some other people who have been on our show before as team captains. We had James Stevens and Sammy K hosting, and it was really fun because you got to play along in the chat, and you can still watch back and play along. The forums are still up. So Nicole, that was a great show, right?
Amazing. Yeah. It's so fun to go back, and you could play it whenever. It's great. You can go back, you can do it now, you can go back in a year from now. It's kind of a time capsule in itself, that episode.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I look forward to doing that again soon. So obviously you have this roundtable. We'll be back for future roundtables and live shows. I'll make sure to make that announcement. And I'm just going to hold off on saying exactly who it is because there's always a chance that this thing doesn't come together. But I'm hoping next week on our roundtable, we will actually have a former cast member be joining us on the roundtable. So that will be really exciting to break down the Daniel Kaluya episode. I'll put a little tease out for that. And I hope you all join us. If you'd like to reach out to me directly, you can reach me at John Schneider 24 or Twitter or Instagram, like Nicole said, at SNL Stats. Nicole is doing a great job populating all of those social media accounts with our excellent content. So I just want to thank everybody for taking the time, listening to us for an hour and a half, gush about Maya Rudolph in this episode. It was a really, really fun conversation with the panel. I hope everybody has a pleasant week ahead, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
But we're here for the numbers as well. So let's get statistical, so unpredictable here on SNL.